You're listening to the Fort Erie Podcast, your local source for upcoming events, hot new listings, and bite-sized interviews with business and community leaders. Here's your host, Brent Jones.
Hey there, good morning. I'm your host, Brent Jones, and you're listening to Season 3, Episode 3 of the Fort Erie Podcast. It is Tuesday, October 27th, 2020, and today my guest will be Martha Mason, Executive Director of the Fort Erie Multicultural Centre, as well as the Peace Bridge Newcomer Centre. And fun fact, Martha was nominated by you, dear listeners, last season to be on the show this season as my guest. And we'll, of course, get to that interview shortly. But first, here's what's making news in Fort Erie. First story, and I apologize in advance for mispronouncing his name, but Sergeant Bill Schuenals, better known as Mr. Fort Erie, has retired from Niagara Regional Police after a 51-year career in law enforcement. As with all stories that I cover on this show, be sure to check out the link in the show notes below this episode for more details. In the article that I've linked to, Mr. Fort Erie shares some of the most memorable events of his career, including the 1983 bank heist in Ridgeway. Next, due to COVID-19, the two branches of the Royal Canadian Legion in Greater Fort Erie will be managing their annual Poppy campaign a little bit differently in 2020. The campaign officially kicks off on October 30th in advance of Remembrance Day, but this year there will be no canvassing and no in-person sort of distribution of the poppies and to collect funds. Instead, this year the Legion is counting on boxes left out at local businesses to raise funds for specific use by veterans, and they are counting on our support. Lastly, despite the Fort Erie racetrack being closed to fans this season, it was in fact a season for the books, so to speak. There was record wagering in 2020 with $40.2 million wagered over the course of 39 races. That's up over $29.9 million wagered in 2019, a pretty significant increase. Next, let's talk about this week's hot new listing. It's courtesy of Jordan Hill with House of Homes Limited Brokerage. And I'm talking about the new listing at 3660 Nye Road near the intersection of Ridge Road. This 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom bungalow is on a lot approximately 80 by 300 feet deep, asking $459,900. You can check out the link in the show notes below this episode or call me for details about this hot new listing. Now let's see what's on your mind this week, Fort Erie, and check in with the Fort Erie Questions and Answers Facebook group. Let's see. Shelley says, I'm looking for a good veterinarian in town. Okay, answers were pretty evenly split here between 4 different veterinary clinics, 4 different animal hospitals, Lakeshore, Borderview, Ridgeway, and Fort Erie Animal Hospital. There wasn't really a clear winner because people had nice things to say about all 4 of these animal hospitals. I guess that's a bit of good news. It appears we're very fortunate in this town to have 4 excellent veterinary clinics to choose from. Maria says, she is looking for someone to replace my eaves troughs. Any recommendations? The answer I saw with the most responses was A1 quality roofing and siding on Alfred Street. All right, folks, that's what's happening in Fort Erie this week. Now on to my interview with Martha Mason. All right, welcome back, everybody. I am sitting down with Martha Mason, Executive Director of the Fort Erie Multicultural Centre, as well as the Peace Bridge Newcomer Centre. Welcome so much to the show, Martha.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, I'm so glad to get a chance to chat with you here. And let me start by asking you the same question I ask all of my guests, which is, what makes Fort Erie such a great place to live and work?
I think Fort Erie has a lot of unique history because it's a border town. There's a lot of firsts that happened here. One of our former presidents was involved with, in the 1960s, with some products that were first in Fort Erie. The birth control pill, for example,
really
was first manufactured here in Fort Erie.
Huh.
And there's other firsts that I can't think of any other ones momentarily, but there's a lot of unique history here. The Black history is pretty unique in the Underground Railroad. It's not as talked about as much as in some other parts of Niagara, but this was a crossing area. People didn't necessarily stay here, but they did cross here. And there was a lot of support for that. And so we have a historical role in helping people find a new place. when they leave the other side of the Niagara River.
Well, that's such a great tie-in to what you do here, and really ties in nicely with my next question, which is you kind of almost wear two hats in the sense that you have the Newcomer Centre here as well as the Multicultural Centre. Can you talk a little bit about what those two sort of entities offer, what they do, and kind of how they're related and how they're different?
Okay. Well, the Peace Bridge Newcomer Centre is located at the border, and our role here is to help provide information and support to new refugee claimants who are coming into Canada, applying for refugee status. And we help them with destination information about what the refugee claim system is like, what things they need to be aware of, timelines, deadlines, those kind of things. We also help inform their family member because they're usually here to pick them up. And the community settlement in other locations in Fort Erie is about helping people who decide to live here, who decide to stay here. And we also offer language training program for English, which is organized by the federal government of Canada, and it's all very Canadian language benchmarks. It's associated with criteria for citizenship in Canada and all of the various aspects of someone new coming here and what things they need to do.
Interesting. What might surprise people about the work that you do here?
So it's a unique place, and it has a lot of Indigenous history here too. When the Peace Bridge Plaza was built, there was a lot of acknowledgement and support for ensuring that protected areas were cared about and cared for during the building of the new site.
Okay.
Just as an example, and the structure of the building too. Buildings is in honor of Indigenous culture, the rocks, the trees, those kind of things.
Right. So for somebody who might want to learn more about the work you do, or who may want to get involved, I mean, what's the best way for them to do that? Do you need volunteers at any time, or?
We do like to have volunteers. There's lots of different things that volunteers can do, from helping someone practice their language, their English language,
right,
to just befriending maybe a new family, helping them get to know the community, where they can go for shopping and getting around the neighborhood, learning where everything is, that sort of thing, and even just being friendly.
Right. Sure. Yeah. That makes perfect sense. Well, I want to pause for a moment to kind of jump into the rapid fire question round. And This is something fun I like to do with all of my guests. Just little trivia questions for people to get to know you a little bit better. So I'll rattle off a series of quick questions. First answer that pops in your head, just blurt it out. Sound good? Okay. Let's start with this. What do you look for in a friend?
I guess listening.
Good listening. All right. Yeah. Actually, the next one is, would you consider yourself a listener or a talker?
I'm a listener.
Listener. All right. Name someone here in town that you admire.
Wayne Redica.
Our mayor. Okay. If you could rid the world of one thing, what would it be?
Racism.
Nice. What is the scariest thing you've ever done for fun?
The Comet roller coaster in Crystal Beach.
Terrifying.
Yes.
What is in the trunk of your car right now?
Cleaning supplies.
Okay.
And a kit. My husband and I, we take care of a lot of cemetery graves. So we have a kit for cleaning cemeteries.
Okay.
For cleaning the stones.
I would have never guessed if you would have asked me what was in your trunk right now. If you had to wear a T-shirt on it with just one word for one whole year, what word would it be on your T-shirt?
Wow.
Would you rather be without the internet for a week or without your phone for a week?
My phone.
Phone? Okay. You gave a decisive answer, and that's it. You survived the rapid fire question round.
Thank you.
Very nice. Well, I hope everybody got to learn something a little new about you there. So anyway, getting back into the crux of things, you're obviously involved in two very community focused organizations. How did you get involved in this kind of work?
Well, I've always enjoyed being part of the community, helping people and helping people feel like they belong. There's an important aspect of being here and feeling like you belong here that I believe is very important. I like to be a part of that. I like to help people get on with whatever it is that they need. And people do tend to come to me with their needs. So I think over time, that's what's helped shape my role as a listener and as a doer. I work quietly in the background. I'm not someone who my face isn't out there, but I'm the kind of person I think that leads from behind. It doesn't matter who gets the credit as long as it gets done.
Nice. Well, I guess my last question would be this. What steps do you think residents of Fort Erie could take to be more, say, accepting or more tolerant of newcomers?
I think education, talking about things. It's one of the roles of our work at the Fort Erie Multicultural Centre that we try to do, is just help dispel myths, help people understand some of the challenges that a newcomer might face. Some of the work that we are trying to do with Indigenous people to help create bridges, to build bridges with them, and learn about them and how we can work work together. And it doesn't have to be activity-based. It's kind of like one at a time, you know? So small conversations that can grow. Right. And building understanding about the differences that we have and how those differences can actually be our strength.
Wow. Yeah. Great. Oh, that's important work. Well, I'm going to put links in the show notes beneath this episode for people to get in touch with the Multicultural Centre. And, but I want to thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sitting down with me today.
You're very welcome. Thank you for coming.
Welcome back, everybody. With October 31st just a few days away, it's time for a special Halloween edition of
This Month in Fort Erie History, presented by HalfPennyDreadfuls.com.
October 1952, Halloween in Stevensville. Miss Shirley Beam explains. There was a cider mill, and it was very, very productive. It was operated by Charlie Whale, and he was a kind old gentleman, and us kids used to do all kinds of pranks on Halloween, but we never did anything to the cider mill. He would always leave us a great big barrel of cider with a granite cup that hung from a nail on top, and you could go back there when you were all hot and sweaty from tramping around the streets. That barrel was always full, and every child just loved him for that fresh cup of good cider.
Okay, let's wrap up today's brand new episode with some upcoming community events. First, coming up this Friday, October 30th at 9 a.m., there will be a flu shot clinic specifically for patients of the Fort Erie Group Family Practice at 238 Bertie Street. That's from 9 a.m. until 12 p.m. Also on Friday, October 30th, beginning at 7 p.m., this event is hosted by Sessions on the River, part of the Rise Up TV tour. You can catch a live performance from Sarah Smith. This will be a virtual event, and you can purchase access to Sarah Smith's performance for just $4.99. Let's see, coming up on, I believe this is Halloween Day. Yes, Saturday, October the 31st, the Ridgeway Legion is planning drive-through trick-or-treating. So this begins at 12:30 p.m. and will continue so long as supplies last. A way of keeping kids safe during pandemic times and also giving them a chance to go trick-or-treating. 228 South Mill Street in Ridgeway. Also happening in Ridgeway on Halloween, and I believe this is starting at 5 p.m., Joe's Value Mart is doing kind of a whole host of things, setting up a small straw maze in their parking lot, also handing out some goodie bags and candies and treats and things like that. There's some mention here of some pancakes and pizza, and looks like there's all kinds of stuff. Check out the details in the show notes below this episode. And the last event I'm going to mention, also relevant to Halloween, is a performance from classic rock band No Illusions happening Halloween evening starting at 8 p.m. at the Bell Tower. I guess that'll just about do it for this week, Fort Erie. For those of you who will be trick-or-treating this weekend, please be safe out there and join me next Tuesday for a brand new episode of the Fort Erie podcast featuring Keith McTagg, co-owner of Planks Canada in Crystal Beach. So long for now, everybody. Chat with you soon.
You've been listening to the Fort Erie podcast with your host, Brent Jones, a sales representative with RE/MAX Niagara Realty Limited Brokerage. Follow @BuyWithBrent on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for updates. Subscribe to the Fort Erie podcast on popular platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and catch a new bite-sized episode every week. Until next time.